The massive alien warship hung in space like a dark cloud, its hull stretching nearly 20 kilometers from end to end. Inside the command center, Admiral Red stared at the holographic display with his 4 eyes narrowed in confusion. Something wasn't right about the readings his sensors were picking up from the small human vessel that had just appeared at the edge of his fleet's scanning range. "Impossible," he muttered, his scaled fingers tapping against the smooth surface of his command console. "Run those scans again." The ship's AI complied instantly, but the results remained the same. The human vessel, barely larger than a standard cargo hauler, was broadcasting military-grade signatures. Even more puzzling, it appeared to be heading directly toward Red's fleet of 50 warships. "Sir," his second-in-command spoke up, "the human vessel is hailing us." Red straightened his massive frame, towering over 3 meters tall. "Put them through. Let's see what madness drives them to approach the might of the Dominion fleet." The holographic display flickered, and a human face appeared. The creature was small, pink-skinned, with only 2 eyes and barely any protective plating. It wore what Red recognized as a military uniform, though it seemed absurdly simple compared to Dominion battle armor. "This is Captain Tom of the Earth Special Forces," the human spoke clearly and calmly. "We request immediate surrender of your fleet." The command center fell silent for a moment before erupting in thunderous laughter. Red himself couldn't help but join in. The idea that a single small vessel would demand the surrender of 50 Dominion warships was beyond absurd. "Human," Red replied once he had composed himself, "perhaps your translation software is malfunctioning. You are facing the 7th Fleet of the Dominion. Surrender your vessel immediately, and we may spare your crew's lives." The human captain's expression didn't change. "I'll take that as a no. You have 5 minutes to reconsider." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Red staring at empty space. He turned to his tactical officer. "Scan that vessel again. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." "Sir," the tactical officer's voice wavered slightly. "The human ship. It's gone." "Gone? How can it be?" The entire command center shuddered as alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Red's display lit up with multiple breach warnings across his fleet. Somehow, the impossible was happening. Small teams of humans had appeared inside 20 of his ships simultaneously. "Sir, we're getting reports of human soldiers aboard multiple vessels," his security chief shouted. They're moving too fast. Our internal defenses can't track them." Red watched in growing horror as ship after ship began reporting critical systems failures. The humans moved like ghosts through his vessels, their small size allowing them to slip through maintenance tunnels and access ways that the much larger Dominion warriors couldn't fit through. Their weapons, though primitive-looking, cut through Dominion armor with frightening efficiency. "Get me a visual," Red demanded, his composure cracking as reports of chaos continued flooding in. The display showed him something that would haunt his dreams for years to come. A team of 3 humans, barely reaching the chest height of his warriors, systematically dismantling a whole squad of Dominion elite guards. Their movements were precise, coordinated, and utterly lethal. They didn't waste energy on grandstanding or unnecessary combat. They simply identified targets and eliminated them with mechanical efficiency. Within 4 minutes and 30 seconds, half of Red's fleet had gone dark. The humans had targeted command centers, engine rooms, and weapons systems with surgical precision. His mighty warships, each capable of reducing a planet's surface to slag, were being taken apart from the inside by what appeared to be less than 100 total human soldiers. As the 5-minute mark approached, Captain Tom's face appeared on Red's display once again. The human's expression remained unchanged, as if he were discussing the weather rather than orchestrating the systematic dismantling of a superior force. "Time's up, Admiral," Tom said simply. "Would you like to reconsider my offer?" Red looked at his tactical display, watching as more and more of his ships went dark. His mighty fleet, pride of the Dominion, was being defeated by what amounted to less than a company of human soldiers. I surrender," Red managed to say, his voice barely a whisper. News of the Seventh Fleet's defeat spread through the Dominion like wildfire. In the Grand Council chamber on the Dominion homeworld, massive screens displayed the battle records that had been recovered from Admiral Red's vessel. The council members watched in stunned silence as the footage showed small teams of humans systematically taking control of their mighty warships. High Commander Stone, the supreme military leader of the Dominion, slammed his fist against the ornate table. The impact left a dent in the metal surface. "How?" he roared. "How did they bypass our shields? Our security systems? Where did they come from?" The chief of military research, Dr. Blue, stepped forward. His thin frame trembled slightly as he activated his presentation. "We've analyzed the data, sir. The humans appear to have developed some form of short-range teleportation technology. But that's not what should worry us most." The holographic display shifted to show detailed scans of the human soldiers' equipment. "These suits they wear," Blue continued, "they're nothing like we expected. We always assumed human technology was primitive because it appeared bulky and simple. We were wrong." The display zoomed in on one of the human combat suits. What looks like crude armor is actually an incredibly sophisticated system. It enhances their natural speed and strength, while remaining flexible enough to allow them to move through spaces our warriors can't access. Their weapons, which we dismissed as projectile-based relics, are actually railguns with armor-piercing capabilities we've never seen before. Stone's expression darkened. "You're telling me we underestimated them? That's your explanation for this disaster?" "No, sir," Blue replied, his voice growing firmer. "I'm telling you we fundamentally misunderstood them. Look at this footage." The display showed a team of 3 humans defending a captured engine room. A squad of Dominion warriors had them cornered, but instead of surrendering or fighting to the death as expected, the humans did something completely unexpected. They worked together. "Watch their movements," Blue explained. "When one human reloads, another provides cover. When one draws enemy fire, another flanks. They don't fight like warriors seeking glory. They fight like a single organism. Their small size isn't a weakness. It's a tactical advantage they've learned to exploit perfectly." The council chamber erupted in heated discussions. Stone raised his hand for silence. "What of Admiral Red? What does he say about all this?" A new figure appeared on the main screen. Admiral Red, still in his command uniform, but somehow looking smaller than before. "High Commander," he began, his voice steady but haunted. "I've faced many enemies in my career, but never anything like this. The humans, they didn't just defeat us. They changed the rules of warfare itself." "Explain," Stone demanded. "We built our military doctrine around overwhelming force," Red continued. "Bigger ships, stronger weapons, heavier armor. The humans looked at the same problem and went the opposite direction. They developed ways to turn our strength against us. Our ships were so big that we couldn't effectively defend their interiors. Our warriors were so large that we couldn't pursue the humans through maintenance tunnels. They studied us, learned our weaknesses, and developed the perfect countermeasures." Stone's expression remained grim. "And now they demand our surrender." "No, High Commander," Red replied, surprising everyone. "They demand negotiations. Equal terms. They say this demonstration was just to get our attention, to make us understand that size and strength aren't everything." The council chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. The Dominion, which had conquered half the galaxy through sheer military might, had been outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Not through superior firepower or overwhelming numbers, but through innovation, tactical brilliance, and the perfect application of a tiny elite force. Stone looked around the chamber, seeing the same realization on every face. The age of simply overwhelming their enemies with superior size and strength was over. The humans had changed everything. The meeting chamber aboard the neutral space station felt uncomfortably small to the Dominion representatives. High Commander Stone had to duck to avoid hitting his head on the ceiling, while Admiral Red and Dr. Blue sat awkwardly in chairs designed to accommodate multiple species. Across the table, Captain Tom and his two teammates, Ace and Bull, looked perfectly at ease. "Let's begin with a demonstration," Tom said, placing a small device on the table. "This is what allowed us to bypass your defenses." Blue leaned forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his caution. The device was smaller than his palm, a simple-looking metal cube with no visible controls or displays. Some form of teleportation technology. "Not exactly," Ace spoke up, her voice carrying the same calm confidence as her captain's. "We call it a phase shifter. Instead of moving through space, we briefly shift slightly out of sync with normal spacetime. Your shields and hull plating might as well be air to us when it's active." Stone's massive fists clenched. "Why show us this? Why reveal your technological secrets?" "Because," Bull answered, his weathered face breaking into a slight smile. "It's already obsolete. We developed this tech specifically for the operation against your fleet. By now, our research teams have moved on to the next innovation." The implications hit the Dominion leaders like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just developed a way to defeat them. They had done it with technology they considered disposable. "How?" Blue whispered. "How do you advance so quickly?" Tom's expression softened slightly. "That's actually why we're here. We've studied your civilization extensively. The Dominion has ruled through strength for so long that you've stopped adapting. Every problem is solved with more force, bigger weapons, stronger shields. We humans, we never stop looking for new solutions." "You want an alliance," Red said suddenly, understanding dawning in his four eyes. "Not because you need our strength, but because we need your stability," Tom finished. "Humanity's greatest strength is also our greatest weakness. We innovate because we have to. We adapt because we're small, because we're physically weaker than most species. But that constant drive for change makes us unstable sometimes." Ace pulled up a holographic display showing various human achievements. "In the past 100 years, we've colonized dozens of worlds, developed technologies that most species take millennia to discover, and pushed the boundaries of science in ways that sometimes frighten even us. We need partners who can help us maintain order while we push those boundaries." "And what do we gain from this partnership?" Stone asked, his voice less hostile than before. "Evolution," Bull replied simply. "We're not asking you to change who you are. The Dominion's strength and stability are valuable, but we can show you new ways to apply that strength. Together, we could create something unprecedented, a civilization that combines the best of both our species." The room fell silent as the Dominion leaders considered this. They had come expecting either to face demands for surrender or to negotiate terms of separation. Instead, these small, surprising humans were offering something far more interesting. "There would be conditions," Tom continued. "Equal rights for all species, shared technology development, a joint defense force that combines our different approaches." Red looked at his fellow leaders, then back at the humans. "You planned this from the start, didn't you?" "The attack on my fleet wasn't just a demonstration of power, it was a demonstration of potential." "Every action serves multiple purposes," Tom acknowledged. "We could have sent diplomats, but you wouldn't have taken them seriously. We could have fought a conventional war, but that would have cost millions of lives. Instead, we chose a path that would get your attention and prove our worth while minimizing casualties." Stone looked down at the phase shifter on the table, then at the small humans who had changed everything. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "it's time for the Dominion to evolve." 6 months after the historic meeting, the first joint human-Dominion military base hummed with activity. The massive training facility on a terraformed moon showcased the stark contrasts between the two species, yet also highlighted their growing cooperation. In one of the main training halls, Bull stood before a group of towering Dominion warriors, looking almost comically small in comparison. "Size isn't your enemy," Bull explained, his voice carrying across the chamber. "It's your asset, but you need to learn when to use it and when to adapt." He gestured to a complex obstacle course behind him. "Today, we're going to show you how to think like a small soldier." The Dominion warriors looked skeptical, but months of working with humans had taught them not to underestimate these tiny instructors. Their leader, Captain Rock, stepped forward. "How can we possibly move like humans? We are 3 times your size." "You don't need to move like us," Bull smiled. "You need to think like us. Watch." He activated his combat suit, a newer model than the one used in the fleet operation. The suit hummed to life, its surface shifting to match the surrounding colors. Bull moved through the obstacle course with fluid grace, using momentum and leverage rather than brute force. He slipped through tight spaces, used minimal movements to avoid detection, and demonstrated how to turn an enemy's strength against them. In another section of the base, Ace worked with Dr. Blue and a team of engineers. They had spread dozens of holographic displays around them, showing various technological innovations from both species. "The problem with your shield technology," Ace pointed out, "isn't its strength, it's its rigidity. You build shields like walls, but they should flow like water." She manipulated one of the displays, showing how human shield technology adapted and redirected energy rather than simply absorbing it. Blue's eyes widened with understanding. "And if we combine this with our power generation capabilities?" "Exactly," Ace nodded. "Your power sources are far more efficient than ours. Imagine shields that not only block attacks but turn that energy into additional power." Meanwhile, in the command center, Tom and High Commander Stone reviewed reports from across their combined territory. The screen showed joint patrols, shared research projects, and construction of new facilities designed to accommodate both species. "The border raiders have gone quiet," Stone noted, his voice carrying a hint of satisfaction. "Word of our alliance has spread." "Fear of the unknown is a powerful deterrent," Tom agreed. "No one quite knows what we're capable of together, and that uncertainty works in our favor." Stone turned to face the human captain. "There is something I still don't understand. Your species had this capability all along. The technology, the tactical knowledge, the potential to challenge us. Why wait? Why not strike earlier?" Tom's expression grew thoughtful. "Humanity learned some hard lessons in our history. We discovered that winning a war is easy compared to winning the peace that follows. We waited until we were ready not just to fight, but to build something better." The base's alert system suddenly flashed to life, interrupting their conversation. Admiral Red's face appeared on the main screen, his expression urgent. "We've detected multiple unauthorized wormholes opening at the edge of our space. The energy signatures match nothing in our database." Stone and Tom shared a quick glance. This would be the first real test of their alliance. "How many ships?" Stone demanded. "At least 300, Red reported. "Larger than anything we've encountered before." Tom's lips curved into a slight smile. "Excellent. Time to show the galaxy what happens when you combine Dominion strength with human innovation." He activated his comm link. "All units, this is Captain Tom. Execute Protocol Tiny Thunder." Throughout the base, human and Dominion forces moved with practiced precision, their movements synchronized despite their size differences. The time had come to demonstrate that their alliance was more than just a political agreement. It was the birth of something unprecedented in the galaxy. Protocol Tiny Thunder turned out to be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. As the massive unknown fleet approached, the combined human Dominion Defense Force took positions that seemed to make no tactical sense. The Dominion's huge warships, instead of forming their traditional battle wall, spread out in what appeared to be a random pattern. Between them, small human vessels darted about like insects. In the command center of the new joint flagship, Thunderchild, Tom and Stone stood side by side, watching the enemy fleet approach. The unknown ships were massive, easily twice the size of Dominion warships, their black hulls seeming to absorb light itself. "No response to our hails," Ace reported from her station. "They're charging weapons." "Perfect." Tom smiled. "Bull, are your teams in position?" "Ready and waiting." Bull's voice came through the comm. All phase units report green status. Stone raised his hand, and his voice boomed through the command channel. Dominion ships, execute formation thunder. The massive Dominion warships suddenly fired their engines in perfect synchronization. What had appeared to be a random scatter of ships transformed into an intricate web of overlapping fields of fire. The small human vessels, previously seeming to move randomly, now occupied precise positions at key intersections of this web. The enemy fleet launched their first attack, beams of dark energy that made space itself seem to warp. But they met something unexpected. The combined shields of human and Dominion technology didn't just block the attacks. They caught them like a spider's web catches flies. Now, Tom ordered quietly. Across the battlefield, human phase shifters activated. But unlike the raid on the Dominion fleet months ago, this was something entirely new. The human ships didn't just phase their crews, they projected phase fields around sections of space itself. The enemy fleet suddenly found itself divided. Chunks of their formation trapped in bubbles of phase space, where their weapons had no effect. The Dominion warships, their weapons enhanced with human targeting systems, opened fire with devastating precision. Second phase, Stone commanded. From the seemingly vulnerable human ships came swarms of tiny objects, not missiles or fighters, but pods barely large enough for two beings. Inside each pod, a human soldier sat with a Dominion warrior in a specially designed dual control system. Remember your training. Bull's voice encouraged as the pods streaked toward the enemy ships. Size is what you make of it. The pods phased through the enemy shields as if they weren't there. But instead of deploying troops, they attached themselves to specific points on the massive ship's hulls. Each pod became a control node, allowing its human Dominion team to hack and manipulate the enemy vessel's systems. Their ships are biomechanical. Blue reported from his science station, excitement in his voice. The combination of human neural interfaces and Dominion power systems is overwhelming their control networks. On the main screen, they watched as ship after ship in the enemy fleet began to shut down. Some turned their weapons on their own allies. Others simply went dark, their crews trapped inside by their own security systems. They're retreating, Ace announced. The remaining ships are powering up their wormhole drives. Let them go, Tom said, sharing a knowing look with Stone. They'll spread the word. Stone nodded in agreement. The galaxy needs to understand. The age of relying on size and brute force alone is over. This is the dawn of true cooperation. As they watched the surviving enemy ships flee, Tom couldn't help but smile. The tiny army had evolved into something far more powerful than anyone could have imagined, not through force alone, but through the perfect fusion of different strengths and perspectives. Throughout the fleet, human and Dominion crews celebrated together. The pods returned to their ships, each carrying pairs of warriors who had learned to fight as one. They had faced their first true test as an alliance, and they had passed it with flying colors. The message to the galaxy was clear. Underestimate this alliance at your own risk. 1 week after the battle, representatives from 20 different alien species crowded into the Grand Assembly Hall of the Neutral Space Station. The room buzzed with nervous energy as delegations whispered among themselves, all eyes occasionally darting to the empty podium at the center of the chamber. Did you see the battle footage? A tall, serpentine diplomat hissed to his neighbor. They turned a fleet of world eaters into scrap without losing a single ship. World eaters? Another delegate asked, their bioluminescent skin pulsing with anxiety. Those were world eaters. The same race that destroyed the ancient empire 5,000 years ago. The serpentine diplomat confirmed. No one had seen them since. Until now. The chamber fell silent as Tom and Stone entered together, followed by their core team. The sight was striking. The massive Dominion commander walking in perfect step with the human captain, as if they'd been working together for years instead of months. Bull and Rock came next, wearing the new joint design combat suits that accommodated both species. Behind them, Ace and Blue carried data tablets containing the battle analysis. Admiral Red brought up the rear, his formerly rigid military posture now more relaxed and confident. "Welcome," Tom began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "We know you all have questions about recent events. We're here to provide answers and opportunities." Stone stepped forward, his massive frame no longer intimidating but reassuring. "The force you witnessed defeating the World Eaters wasn't just a military alliance. It represents a new way of thinking about cooperation between species." Ace activated a holographic display, showing scenes from the battle. "Traditional military doctrine focuses on maximizing strengths," she explained. "We've discovered something different, the art of combining complementary abilities." The Dominion contributed power, durability, and strategic stability. Blue added, highlighting relevant sections of the display. Humans brought innovation, adaptability, and tactical flexibility. Together, we created something greater than the sum of its parts. A delegate from a warrior race stood up, their armor clanking. "Are you suggesting we all need to form similar alliances?" "Not at all," Bull replied with a slight smile. "We're suggesting something more interesting. We're offering to share our methodology." Rock activated another display, showing training facilities and research centers. "What we've created isn't just about military power. It's a framework for cooperation that can be adapted to any combination of species." The chamber erupted in excited discussion. Tom raised his hand for silence. "But there are conditions. This knowledge comes with responsibilities. The age of empire building through force alone must end," Stone declared. "We will share our advances only with those who commit to peaceful cooperation and mutual defense." "You're creating a new order," the Serpentine diplomat realized. "Not through conquest, but through innovation and collaboration." "Precisely," Tom nodded. "The World Eaters believed that bigger was always better, that overwhelming force was the answer to every question. Their defeat proves otherwise." Admiral Red stepped forward. "As someone who once thought the same way, I can tell you that adapting to new ideas isn't easy, but the rewards are worth it." "The choice is yours," Stone concluded. "You can maintain the old ways of thinking, measuring strength purely in size and numbers, or you can join us in building something new." The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Then, one by one, delegates began to stand, not in aggression or challenge, but in acceptance. As Tom watched the scene unfold, he remembered that first confrontation with Admiral Red's fleet. They had started with a tiny army, seeking only to prove that humanity deserved respect. Now they were helping to reshape the galaxy itself, not through force of arms, but through the power of cooperation and innovation. The tiny army had grown into something far greater than anyone could have imagined, a movement that would change the course of galactic history forever. 5 years after the defeat of the World Eaters, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The observation deck of Harmony Station, the largest joint species construction project in history, offered a perfect view of these changes. Tom stood at the window, watching ships of all sizes and designs moving through space in perfect coordination. Still admiring the view, Stone's deep voice came from behind him. The Dominion commander had to duck slightly to enter the observation deck, but the station's innovative design made such accommodations feel natural rather than awkward. "Hard not to," Tom replied, turning to face his friend. "Remember when we thought success meant just getting the Dominion to take us seriously?" Stone laughed, a sound that would have been unthinkable from a Dominion commander years ago. "Now look at us, 57 member species in the Alliance, and more applying every month." They watched as a massive Dominion cargo ship passed by, escorted by nimble human corvettes. Behind them, a fleet of ships representing a dozen different species practiced new formation maneuvers developed by Bull and Rock's joint training program. "Speaking of Bull and Rock," Tom said, checking his data pad, "their new combat academy has a waiting list 3 years long. Every species wants to learn the combined warfare techniques they've developed." "And Ace and Blue?" Stone asked, though he already knew the answer. Their research institute has registered over 1,000 new patents this year alone. Turns out when you get scientists from different species working together, innovation happens at an exponential rate. The station's alert system chimed softly, and Admiral Red's hologram appeared before them. Age had added some gray to his scales, but his eyes were sharper than ever. The deep space sensors just picked up something interesting, Red reported. A World Eater scout ship, watching us from the edge of mapped space. Tom and Stone shared a knowing look. They'd been expecting this. Just watching? Stone asked. Yes, Red confirmed. They've been observing our territory for the past week. No aggressive moves, no attempts to hide. Almost like they're trying to understand us. Tom finished. Have the diplomatic corps prepare a message. Let's invite them to talk. Stone raised an eyebridge. You think they're ready? I think everyone deserves a chance to evolve, Tom replied. That's what this has all been about, hasn't it? Through the window, they could see a new ship emerging from the station's construction dock. It was neither large like a Dominion vessel, nor small like a human craft. Instead, it represented a perfect blend of designs from a dozen different species, incorporating the best aspects of each. The galaxy's first true multi-species warship, Stone said proudly. A year ago, such cooperation would have seemed impossible. That's the funny thing about impossible, Tom smiled. It only stays that way until someone proves otherwise. The station's grand hall was preparing for another graduation ceremony. Human cadets stood shoulder to shoulder with Dominion warriors, while engineers and scientists from across the galaxy shared their latest discoveries. What had started as a tiny army had grown into something far more profound, a movement that proved strength came in all sizes, and true power lay in learning from each other. You know, Stone mused, when we first met, I thought humans were naive. All your talk about cooperation and innovation seemed like weakness to me. And now I understand what you knew all along. The greatest strength isn't in the size of your ships or the power of your weapons. It's in the ability to grow, to change, to see potential where others see limitations. Tom nodded, watching as another group of ships moved past the station, their crews representing the incredible diversity of the galaxy. The tiny army had accomplished its mission, not by conquering or dominating, but by showing the galaxy a better way forward. And somewhere out there, even the World Eaters were watching, learning, and perhaps beginning to understand that the future belonged not to those who could destroy the most, but to those who could build together the best.